Hello there, many thanks for joining us in our Friday Business News Report. It's now time to bring you the feature on the show today as we focus on the state of the Nigerian economy. Well, the economy continues to show signs of gradual improvement despite growing macroeconomic challenges, and the IMF has once again raised the red flag over the country's economic stance, indicating that the nation faces significant risks from the COVID-19 pandemic trajectory, with oil price uncertainty and myriads of security challenges. According to the Global Lender's latest Article 4 consultation report, the Nigerian economy, though recovering from a historic downturn due to government policy support, rising oil prices and international financial assistance, the country would need much more reforms, especially within the field of fiscal, exchange rate, trade, as well as governance areas, so as to maintain a long-term, inclusive, as well as sustainable growth. The IMF, however, commended the federal government's proactive management of the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic impact, but highlights the urgency of fiscal consolidation to create a policy space and reduce debt sustainability risks. Well, joining me now virtually to discuss this and much more, I have policy analyst and public finance analyst as well, Olusegun Elemo. Thank you very much for joining us on the Breakfast Show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Segun, starting off our conversation, these concerns the IMF is raising over the state of the Nigerian economy isn't necessarily new. There's no element of surprise here, as these are issues the global body has always raised concerns about. However, from your perspective, why do you think it will be difficult for the country at this point in time to tilt to the course of the economic direction the IMF is charting for us?
Well, I think it's better imagined. There's politics around the corner. So naturally, politicians are not rational people. So there will be more political consideration than economic decisions taken in the next couple of months. And we already saw that with the suspension of the implementation on the removal of fuel subsidy. Fuel subsidy, we all know it's a burden on us. Number one, we don't know exactly what we consume as a country. There is no data to support that. The Nigerian Governors Forum continues, to protest regarding the consumption of fuel in the country. So that figure that we're spending on a daily basis, as highlighted by the NNPC, GMD. Is not the true state of things, but then you see how politicians reacted by saying that they would rather continue to pay subsidy because there is politics ahead. There's no other way to define it. It's just politics.
I like the fact that you bring into perspective that this marks the pre-election year. So as part of solutions being proposed by the IMF are the need for stronger major reforms in the fiscal, exchange rates, trade and governance areas to lift long-term inclusive growth. Now, with this year marking really the pre-election year, the one that precedes the 2023 elections, many analysts are not optimistic that any change will come to bear, as activities from the second part of this year would largely be politicking rather than consolidating on any reform that we've had either in the past or new changes that we're starting the year with. Do you share this sentiment?
Absolutely. Everybody is declaring now. There is declaration and counter declarations from everywhere. Sitting governors are declaring to run for one office or the other. Current ministers are declaring to run for one thing or the other. Everybody's just declaring. So, we've literally entered the election, and it's sad really, that we barely have 2 or 2.5 years to govern in a 4-year tenure. And I think that proposal of former President Goodluck Jonathan saying that we should have a 6-year one term for president, I think it's just, even for president and sitting governors, I think it's just the way to go. Because this idea of spending 2.5 years and spending the remaining 1.5 politicking around and not addressing key governance issues continues to erode some of the economic gains that whatever it is we've achieved in the last. Look at what's happening right now. There's so much to attend to. Yes, the current president is not running again. He'll probably be facing governance issues through to the end, but then he has campaigned for his party and he has to look after the convention that is ahead of him. And then again, the opposition parties are there looking to take up power, and everybody's just distracted. But like IMF said, there's so much on our hands to address, and if we don't deal with some of these monsters, for instance, the exchange rate issue, the fuel subsidy crisis, the revenue problem that we have, I think we're still just going to go around the same cycle, and even when we transition to another government, we still have the same problems to deal with.
Olusegun, if I may button here now, talking about going around the same cycle, as you've also acknowledged, well, this is the last active year for the Buhari administration. However, it succumbed to the pressure and also postponed the removal of petrol subsidy by another 18 months, even after the finance minister Zainab Ahmed announced earlier at the start of the year that the federal government plans to eliminate petrol subsidy by half year. Now, the IMF is insisting once again that Nigeria must put a stop to the subsidy regime. How much of an economic toll do you think this move would have on the country as we are extending it further another 18 months and then looking at our revenue generation strategy, as well as the budget deficit this would also lead into?
Great toll, really. There are two sides to it. Even if you had removed this first subsidy, it would have been the same disaster on the people. See, the truth is, you cannot continue to, you need to expand the economy. You need to get things working. And you see, it is sad. It is sad. And I want this generation of leaders, particularly those who have run the country, since 1960 till now. There's literally nothing, absolutely nothing to show. On the ground today, there is no refinery, there is no power, there is no development. So look at, for instance, we're facing fuel crisis everywhere. If that adulterated fuel was even refined locally, we would say that, yeah, this is our own problem. But imagine that we had to import adulterated fuel into the country, and that thing scaled all the, checks that should have been done, and then you put it into the market, and then, Nigerians are burdened again. Yes, if you remove the fuel subsidy, yes, you'll be able to get more revenue, but what will be the counter effect on the people? Will they take it lightly with you? Do they have disposable income to be able to buy the new price at the new price when there is no electricity, when they continue to use fuel to power their own businesses? It's just unrealistic. So yes, IMF stand is very, very, it's the best for us to go, but in looking at it in actual reality, the politicians will, of course, play to the gallery, and they've done that in this regard. Whether we have the money to continue to pay the subsidy is another thing entirely, and you see what the NNPC is saying. So there's so much problems everywhere, and I don't know how the politicians are going to get out of this mess, but certainly we need to be vigilant going into 2023, honestly.
Well, we're also expecting the population census to be carried out this year. We are wrapping up our conversation at this point in time. Olusegun, how critical would you say it is to work with accurate data in terms of setting the tempo for an economic agenda and a clear blueprint to outlive any administration in setting the tempo for a fresh administration come the year 2023? How critical would you say this move in getting accurate data is, taking into cognizance the fact that Nigerians need to enjoy the dividend of democracy? They need better welfare solutions to the current issues they're facing. Things have to get better. How much of the big data do you think we have to work with?
In fact, you see, accurate data there is not cannot be overemphasized in the development of the country. So not just the people that needs to be counted now. We need to know the number of vehicles in the country. We need to know the number of filling stations dispensing fuel across the country. We need to know how much fuel they're dispensing every day to Nigerians. We need to just be evidence-based. We need our policies to be data-driven. When you look at what's happening in the National Assembly right now, people just stand up to speak, making suggestions, insinuations. There's no evidence. There is no data. So, if there was data, for instance, now, we will be talking about how much consumption actually, and then how much subsidy we are paying, So, not just the people that needs to be counted. I think a whole lot of things needs to be counted in this country, so we can have, data-driven policies.
Thank you very much for your time on the Breakfast Show this morning, Olusegun Elemo. Thank you once again, and we hope government is taking cues, and hopefully we have a smooth economic transition once this administration is done with it doing its best. Thank you once again.
We're looking forward to that. Thank you for having me.